Do you crave some action? Are you someone who likes getting free stuff and then reusing it again and again? Have you ever rubbed an old amphor hoping for a genie to come out, only to end up with the hairstylist choir in your living room? No? Just me? Anyways, get ready for your opponents to feel like they're living in a loop as they get to replay their characters again and again and again. All of that without breaking the bank? That's right. For around 17 US dollars, we're showing you a deck you can build, master, upgrade, and even bring to your local league to have fun with and compete in matches. Hello, Inkspilled Glimmers. I'm your host, Nick, and welcome back to Inkling Adventures, the series where we help new Lorcana players take their first journey into the world of Lorcana. Today, we're exploring the world of deck building with a starter budget deck version of Emerald, Sapphire actions. You ready? Let's take a dive. Sapphire Emerald is a deck that's all revolving around the actions and the songs in this game. It wants to play a lot of them, it wants to profit from them, and it wants to run an engine that benefits from the more you play them. But also, it wants to recycle them with cards like Do It Again. So, the basic strategy of the deck is fairly simple. You find your airfoil early game, which draws you card when you play 2 actions in a turn. You use characters in action to gain tempo, to slow your opponent down, to grind the game to a halt. Then, you play 2 actions per turn for Pete to be able to quest for 4, and then for airfoil to draw you more cards. You finish it up by using big evasive characters and quest with them until your opponent is vanquished. It's a really tempo-y gameplay that has a lot of evasive threats and some bouncing mechanics that we don't see a lot in other decks. But it's also a deck that doesn't have a lot of hard removal and can be a little slow to start. It's an acquired taste, but to be fair, this is a really fun deck. Let's dive into it. This deck's an Emerald, so that means one thing: evasive characters. Our 1-drop in this deck is usually Pegasus, Gift for Hercules, a 1/1 questing for 1 evasive character, whose main purpose is to be a shift target for Pegasus Cloud Racer, which is going to quest later for 3, is also an evasive questing for 2, but more importantly, when he shifts, will allow all of our characters to gain evasive for the turn. That will allow us down the road to protect our questers for the crucial turn, where we might need them to quest 2 turns in a row to close the game. If we don't have Pegasus, our alternate 1-drop is Develop Your Brain, an action for 1 that lets you look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose 1 to keep in your hand, the other going at the bottom of your deck. This is great card selection and should allow us to find the 2-drop. In the 2-drop spot, we find Surhis, Aggravating Asp. This 3/1 evasive is a really good defender when it comes to removing some threats from your opponent that might deal with your own evasives further down the line. If he's not available, you'll probably turn yourself towards the Genie, Cramped in the Lamp, a 2/2 that quests for 2 for only 2 inkable that will become a shift target down the road for our bigger Genie. But in the early game, he's mostly a good quester. You might want to play Strike a Good Match or Hypnotic Deduction as a card draw early on in the game, but don't use your actions too much. If you can, the actual best 2-drop you can get is Airfoil. This card is at the center of the deck, and it's an item that you can exert to draw a card if you've played 2 or more actions this turn. So, this is the core of the deck. We want to play a lot of action, use the Airfoil to draw cards. We want to drop it almost every single game on turn 2. Starting turn 3, we recommend playing Mickey Mouse, Detective. We got him in 3 copies, and whenever you play him, you may put the top card of your deck into your Inkwell face down and exerted. He brings us up, he ramps us, so that's really good, and then he can sing a few of our songs. If you don't have that, well, you might be lucky enough to have 2 actions to play that turn and get the show on the road with the drawing from Airfoil. If not, you can always shift Pegasus. It's not the ideal time to do it. You don't have a lot of characters down that will benefit from it, but it's still a 3/3 questing for 2, and if the opponent doesn't have evasive removal, well, that alone can take the game away. In the 4-drops, we start having our engines coming up. The Muses are a 2/4 character with wards, so they can't be chosen by the opponent, that quest for 1, but more importantly, that whenever you play a song, you may return chosen character with 2 power or less to their player's hand. We have 15 songs, so that should happen every once in a while. And returning characters to the opponent's hand is something that is going to delay them and allow us to gain some good tempo. If we don't play the Muses, we can turn around to Sisu, Divine Water Dragon. Whenever she quests, you can look at the top 2 cards of your deck. You may put one into your hand, the other on the bottom of your deck in any order. If that reminds you of the Develop Your Brain card we just talked about, that's because it's the same effect. Every single time she quests. And she quests for 2, so never a bad thing. In the 5-drop spot, we have Pegasus, Cloud Racer, which we talked about, but we also have the star of this deck, Pete Bad Guy. Pete is a 3/4 with ward that quests for 2. But whenever you play an action, he gets 2 extra power this turn. And if his power ever gets to 7, he quests for 2 more. What that means is that if you play your 2 actions a turn to trigger your airfoil, you now have a Pete that can be targeted and will quest for 4. Speaking of not being targeted or being evasive, Genie on the Job is in our 6-drop. He's a 3/4 evasive that when he comes into play, you return chosen character to their player's hand. More likely than not, he's going to act as some form of removal, returning an opponent's character to their hand and delaying their game plan. Sometimes, though, he could return your own Pegasus to your hand so that you can play him again or shift him again and re-give all of your board evasive if you need to. And finally, on the 8-drop, once our Genies have done their early game job, we get the Genie Power Unleashed, a rare from the first chapter that shifts for 6 or can be played for 8, that has evasive, quests for 3, and whenever this character quests, you may play an action with cost 5 or less for free. We're talking about playing 2 actions a turn since the beginning of this. He enables it really, really well. As long as you get the cards rolling, he's going to be able to play those actions and not be challenged because of how evasive he is. But what are those actions we're playing, I hear you say? Well, we did talk about Develop Your Brain. We're also playing Hypnotic Deduction on 2, which is draw 3 cards, return 2 on the top of your deck. So nice card selection, but also these 2 cards you're returning can be cards you already had in hand. They don't have to be from the 3 you just drew. So it's a really good way to mix up things. Hideaway is also a 2-cost action that returns chosen item or location to their player's inkwell, face down and exerted. Great removal against some pesky locations or some items that could be game ending. And finally, Do It Again. This 3-cost action could be played more if you have some spare space in your uninkables. And returns an action card from your discard to your hand. You're going to see in the game how that can be a little bit game-breaking for your opponent. In the songs department, songs being a subtype of action, we have Strike a Good Match. Draw 2 card, choose 1 and discard it. If it's an action, you might be able to play it again with Do It Again. We have Sudden Chill, which is a song that forces each opponent to choose and discard a card, attacking their hand directly. We have Mother Knows Best, which returns chosen character to their player's hand, removing them from the immediate threats on the board if they don't have rush. We also have 3 copies of Your Welcome. So Your Welcome is a new card from Shimmering Sky that shuffles up a character, item, or location into their player's deck, and then that player draws 2 cards. It's a card that's both offensive and defensive, in that you can use it to remove an opponent's item, location, or character, shuffle it in their deck, and in exchange, gift them 2 cards. Or If it's super late game and you draw a Pegasus, gift for Hercules, or a Sir Hiss that you don't have much to do with, well, you can always just shuffle them back up and draw 2 more cards with them. Similarly, How Far I'll Go is a Sapphire song that is going to make you draw 2 cards. Well, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one into your hand and the other into your inkwell, face down and exerted. So that song is going to draw a card, replace itself, basically, and ramp you at the same time. Always good, especially if you can do it again. And finally, we don't talk about Bruno. No. Return chosen character to their player's hand, then that player discards a card at random. It's a good randomized removal when the player has a full grip, but if it's late game and the opponent has an empty hand, it's basically straight up removal. They're going to return it to their hand and discard a card at random, the one they have. So that's about it for the deck tech. What you want to do really is get up to having that airfoil, that Pete, ideally that GD Power Unleashed, and just get those cards drawing, get more and more actions played, and limit your actions to about 2 a turn so that you don't run out. And eventually use that evasive power to quest for 1,000,000. Now it's time for some bad news. If you play this deck and really enjoy its play pattern, you're a bit out of luck. The deck has some legs, but it's not competitive in any way, shape, or form, and it's almost at the peak of what it can be. Sure, there are a few upgrades you can make that will make the deck a little bit more resilient, but there's nothing like an upgrade path to a deck that's going to win you games at your locals or anything. You can play Cogsworth, Grandfather Clock, which is a 5-drop for about $3.60, who has Ward and will give Resist +1 to every other character you have on your board. That's going to protect your questers, protect your singers, and make sure you have a little bit more viability. Similarly, you can pay $18 and get an Ursula Deceiver of All, a 3-cost 2/3 questing for 1 that whenever she sings a song, you may play that song again from your discard for free. Then put it on the bottom of your deck. If you do that, you want to focus a lot of your songs on being 3 costs or less so that she can sing them, or on going a little bit more into the sing together mechanic, where if she's part of the singing team, she's still going to sing it twice for free, no matter how much it costs. And if you have extra budget, or if you pulled some lucky cards in Ursula's Return, you might want to play Diablo, Devoted Herald. This 2/2 evasive creature says that during each opponent's turn, whenever they draw a card with this character being exerted, you may draw a card. What that means is, when they start their turn and draw their card, if Diablo's exerted, you draw a card as well. If they play friends on the other side, you draw 2 cards as well. You may draw 2 cards, actually. This is a may option. If they play Whole New World, you discard your hand and draw up to 14 cards, because they draw 7. So, really great card, really high price, twice the price of the deck. But these are just about the only upgrades you can make to make the deck more powerful. The rest is just action selection. Most actions in Emerald and Sapphire are fairly affordable, so you can play with more Do It Again or more card draw. You get to decide a little bit how you want to shape that part. But in terms of bringing this deck to a more competitive level, that's not going to happen with what we have right now in Shimmering Skies and before. Now, regardless of that, we're talking budget decks and lower power here, so let's jump into the game and see how the deck fares. So, Emerald Sapphire. As an Emerald deck, we're most likely going to play with evasives, so that's what we're doing turn 1, playing Pegasus. Trying to avoid damage. Our opponent is playing a Chromicon. Actually buffing our Pegasus for no reason. So this deck is going to want to play actions. We want to get our airfoil down as soon as possible, which would be now. And then starting on turn 4 or 5, we're going to want to start playing 2 actions a turn to use that airfoil to keep drawing cards and keep that engine going. In the meantime, we're going to try avoiding our opponent's character with evasive threats and probably sending them back to their hand one way or another to try to delay their ability to gain lore themselves. So here on turn 3, we are going to shift Pegasus, giving our old board evasive for the turn, which here's only an evasive character, it's fine. And then they play a Snuggly Duckling, a really nice location that's going to allow them to gain lore when they challenge us, which they can't right now. Here on turn 4, we're going to probably start seeing, there we go, Mother Knows Best, where we're going to start trying to do 2 actions a turn. Here, Strike a Good Match allows us to draw 2, discard 1, and that's going to allow us to exert the airfoil to draw a card in a very short time. There we put Pete, a second airfoil, and then we're probably going to activate the second airfoil, I assume? Oh no, it seems we forgot about it. We should have activated that second airfoil as well. So, opponent plays Mulan, Rush character that still cannot challenge our Pegasus. And here we're starting to see why having ways to deal with evasive character is so important. That Pegasus is going to quest for 2 a turn, and without any answer, he's going to run away with the game by himself. Here we're going to play Do It Again to get back the Strike a Good Match, and then sing Strike a Good Match, discarding an airfoil to be able to draw our 2 cards with our 2 airfoils already on the field. Inking the Muses and not playing anything. But you can already see the card advantage coming with the use of Do It Again to recycle the actions and draw more cards and draw more cards from the airfoils themselves, while the opponent is still getting their board bigger with Queen of Hearts. Which means that if they ever find a way to challenge us, they're going to get their engines rolling as well. Here we're going to tap 6, get Genie on the job, also an evasive, and return the Queen of Hearts to their hand, just negating their last turn, basically. Here they're going to play Hercules while we untap, and that Hercules can be a huge problem for a deck like this if he can ever attack anything we have, which with all the evasive we have is not a real threat right now. And then we're going to shift Genie Power Unleashed onto our Genie on the job, and then sing How Far I'll Go to get a new card in our hand, and then Genie will sing We Don't Talk About Bruno for free while he quests. Genie Power Unleashed is really strong for that. He quests for 3, and at the same time can play an action for 5 or less for free, which means our second action every turn is most likely going to be completely free. Now, there's a nice loop that can be done with Genie Powers Unleash and a Do It Again already in our discard pile. We'll see if it comes up in this game. But if not, we'll play a third airfoil. And, oh, there we go. Play Do It Again to bring back the Do It Again. Ready our characters that we hadn't readied. Quest with them, and play the Do It Again for free, returning the Do It Again being our second action, and then using the 3 airfoils to draw 3 cards. And then next turn, we're going to play the Do It Again to return the Do It Again, and so on and so forth. So now we've basically established a loop every turn, where we're going to activate our airfoils and draw 3 cards a turn from them, from always just using 1 card, basically. That's a problem our opponent really needs to answer. But as we can see, they couldn't deal with the evasives, and now we have 7 on board. We need 7. The game is already over. So this is really a class in, yes, the actions, but mostly in how to, why you have to deal with evasive, especially in lower power games, but even in higher power games. So here, we're going to quest up to 18 because BMing a little bit, to be completely honest. We could have won this turn. We're just being a little bit mean and showcasing the things the deck can do a little more, returning their character to their hand, forcing them to replay it. He's going to remove our genie, but there's still way too much power on the board. Going to quest for 9. This is not something we would suggest in any kind of competitive setting because of Be Prepared, but hey, turns out alright here. This game really showed us that evasive character are a force to reckon with, but also how, with some tweaking, we can set up ways, even on a budget, to repeatedly draw a large amount of cards every single turn and make sure to have all the ink and all the answers necessary to grant our wishes of winning games. That's going to be it for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment with the card you would put in the deck if you were the one building it. We'll see you tomorrow, but until then, keep on questing.